things that people were facing and dealing with were being talked about away. And what needed to happen was all cards on the table. All frustrations, all enjoyments, all aspirations, all skills, all strengths, all weaknesses, all needed throwing out so that we could organise it.
This project, in our words.
Well, we worked together for about at least 10 years. Oddarts used to come in and say, can we do a project? And you knew what we could do, we knew what you could do, and so, but the In Our Words project, in short, was to enable us to work together to run these sort of projects which looked at systemic inequalities. That was the overriding theme. The underlying values of this project, I believe, was that it was community-led, it was raising the voices that are least heard. It was authentic, trusted relationships.
Which we had from the beginning, and they had to develop.
Organisations, and it was like adopting creativity linked with youth work.
Yeah.
For me, all of those.
And I think when I read it, that's what I saw totally, that we could adapt.
I was a youth worker and then at HideAway, and I'd got quite political kids that were taking part in Black Lives Matter stuff and that, and then they were phoning me in the middle of the night, we need to do a project on this, and then I was like emailing Becky, like, Becky, the kids want to do a project, and so that's why it worked, because it was you, like you said, it wasn't you coming to us.
It was young person led.
It was us coming to you saying, can we do this project? And they were really good projects. What we did learn is that when the kids picked the theme of the project, they turn up. That's the thing, they turn up. Like when I look at the everyday racism or the street harassment, they turned up.
For me, the values were that it was community-led, it was young person-led, that was really important.
I was just excited that we were going to be able to like shine a light on some of the stuff that I bang on about all the time. That was basically what
And
I
it
wanted.
also should have been, I think that it was trauma-informed as important to us all as well.
I think because I am on the younger side, and I'm a peer youth worker, and coming from being a young person through HideAway, I think it's perspective really. So I'm able to kind of know what young people are after, what they're wanting, and kind of figure out ways to adapt and improvise and overcome when it comes to the challenges that we face in our Words project. So I think that's the kind of side that I bring.
This honesty and this realness, what this evaluation shouldn't be is all fairies and happiness and rainbows, because the journey hasn't been.
What was the challenge, I think, was around, because we'd got funding to support our teams to do this work. So we brought in, initially, who was leading the work, I'd say was Liv, Lynn and Kyra. And we'd handed it thinking they had adopted what we had.
But they've obviously got very strong personalities, each of them, similar to us, but they'd not had time to thrash that out. And learn about each other.
Exactly right.
I'm sure that Liv could testify it wasn't rainbow for fairies at the beginning, was it?
Not for you. No, I'm joking. Mutually.
We did have that. Yes, it was. Julie literally gave me the paper and said, this is what we're going to be doing. But it was very much a document. It wasn't, there was nothing in there, because I remember saying we've got a breakdown of things.
That was the problem for me. You'd given us a formula, and it's like, Lynn, it's all right, you just follow this formula. And Lynn being Lynn.
But for me, that was because I only had that document that Julie had given me. It was like, this is all I've got, so it just became my Bible.
When you first heard about In Our Words, what did you think it was?
Because I also like pay. I came into the job for In Our Words, and when I read about it, I thought it was going to be a social activism campaigns project. Also, I wasn't aware that it was probably going to be, broadly speaking, based in Moss and New with young people, and particularly young people of colour, because of the way it was written. It talks a lot very vaguely about social injustice, but actually it was, broadly speaking, more like narrowly an anti-racism project. So I walked into this role, and I probably wouldn't have applied for a role in that, because I wouldn't have seen myself as the right person for that role. And I walked into this role and I was like, oh, right, well, I'm not from the communities that are affected here, and I actually am quite detached, and that I don't resent that. at all personally, but I feel bad about being in that role. And then combined with that, I started late because I was late recruited and I had a longer notice period at my previous job.
When I first saw the job, it was on like the Manchester Council, something like that, and it. The way it was written really did feel like it was like a social, like you know what I mean, like a social activist
Great
sort of,
change.
so I think really focusing on inequalities and injustices, but not specifically in the very narrow way that it came to be. And because you had that period when you had to finish off your other contract, I was mainly doing things for Odd, so I was seeing like the way in which Odd was like doing different things and like trying to figure out my role. And then when we came together, it was just like we were still trying to figure out what we were doing.
That was your entry
together.
point.
This was our entry point, and I'm like,
It was so confusing.
how I meant
We weren't introduced.
No.
First session was there, and I'm just like, how the hell am I supposed to sell
Yeah.
Manchester riots, accents and dialects to my young people? They're just gonna go.
We worked together for well over 10 years, and then we expected a new team to come together and just know that.
Yeah.
In the 10 years we'd worked previously, like if you're totally honest, we'd had hiccups, right? We'd had hiccups, we'd worked through those, learned how we'd done it, and I think that same thing happened with our team, and on reflection, they needed the time to form like genuine...
Yeah, because it was more formalised for them, whereas when we got together we were doing it all quite informally, even though we said, right, we're going to do this project, we were all just, as not-for-profits do.
I think what was difficult as well is HideAway now, you planned, aren't you? You plan for projects ahead, and our work is very reactive, just because of the nature of it. And we were reactive when we were in HideAway, but I know you've progressed from that to be more proactive. But it's very difficult when you're doing our sort of work, which Kyra's doing. It's like response.
Yeah.
So I think that was a thing as well in there. Like Kyra could turn up ready to respond to it, but everyone else is trying to have a plan.
And well, I said that to Liv. I was like, this is what we need to deliver. But then when she came back saying, well, this has got thrown in, I was like, oh yeah, well you just got to go with that, and you've got to change your plan, you've got to throw this up. But again, I hadn't.
And as like project manager, I held responsibility for making sense of that. So like, hands up for that. But I also do remember walking into role and being brought to a meeting about this project that had been formed.
Way before.
Talk to us about then, starting off, new in post, doing survival work in the youth club community. What were the problems that you then faced? Because you were just told to deliver. What were the kind of issues that we were seeing coming up?
So,
Misunderstandings,
responsibility, shared responsibility, shared, but I think...
Overload information then, because there was no information, well, limited information, and then there was the WhatsApp groups with overload of information.
Communication issues, people responding to things was an issue as well.
So then that turned into no response because there was an overload.
Overwhelming feelings,
And
for me, it was
knowing, do I need to respond to that? I've just been added to this group, don't really know what's going on. There
didn't seem to be like defined
There was no
roles.
defined
But
roles.
I think we didn't know, like,
we didn't
a
get.
lot of the time it was like, right, so they're the creative people.
But the only thing with, I didn't. You had you have a specific amount of hours for this project. Was you told that? I wasn't. So I've got other things, and I'm like, I don't know when I'm supposed to be doing, and it all kind of fell on me.
As well, part of the problem at that point, from what I can remember, is that the young people hadn't been prepped for the project.
They hadn't been prepped.
So they were just told there's a session going on, you're coming to it, and this is the thing.
I think that's what I was going to mention as well.
I wasn't sure we were.
Because like,
because you didn't know, they weren't prepped.
Because a lot of the projects were just coming through like, oh, it's been decided that this is what we're going to do.
So like, this is definitely not incoming people. This is not in. This is not being youth proofed. This is not in their language.
The engagement that you guys would probably do to start prepping like the young people wasn't really being done. So because like obviously you're like, what exactly?
What is dialect? And obviously
you know what I mean?
realised
Like,
that we don't
how
need
do
to
you
do
sell
the
it?
prep work if it comes from the young people.
Exactly.
We don't need
But
to
that
be
took a while because
But that took a really
like that was part of the
Until the second
conversations
year.
we've had. Like, you've said you're going to come in on this day, that worked for you, and I'm like, it's not working.
Yeah.
I remember the first time we had to mess about with the times because it
Yeah.
wasn't working.
Well, I think also at the beginning, I was conceiving of it as a three-way partnership that we did everything together,
Yeah.
which HideAway was as well.
Yes.
But
Without
that
the
as-
third partner.
But I wasn't.
But eight for
I
you
thought it was
weren't.
I think for me anyway, I knew we were going to be in projects together, but I didn't realise we were all included in everything. So
Yeah.
it was like, for me, I'd keep phoning Becky, but like, I need to do this on the riots, I need to do this.
Yeah.
And Becky would agree, but then other people wouldn't know. But I think I didn't know. That was on me. But I didn't understand we're putting everything together all the time.
Part of what that meant was that we then tried to create these bespoke projects that sat outside of already existing groups and sessions and create something that would bring people together from all these different groups, and then we'd recruit in. But the young people, broadly speaking, didn't want that.
Yeah.
Like, that was just an
Created a
additional
whole thing,
night.
didn't we? Yeah.
Exactly, and that was
But
like
what
made
we, from
up.
the overload of information that
Yeah.
been passed out,
And
like this piece
I
of
think
paper.
also another thing that like for like us, I feel like we were like us figuring out our roles, like really trying to understand that like obviously there was a bit of like tension there just because like we didn't like it was the first like it was these roles.
Because you two didn't even know each other though.
No, we didn't.
New roles.
And
you
you
didn't know
both
each other.
offering new types
We
of
were
roles.
new. They were new, brand new roles. We didn't know like. And me coming in, like this was like my first full-time job after university, so I'm just here like trying to like learn like the ropes and everything like that. And so like I feel like in a good way, like you were really trying to like lead me through it, but I feel like at a certain point we realized that like
I was cramping you basically.
I wouldn't say cramping, but like, you know, like that I just had to take that step and be the you know, the lead of it, so that like you could, because there was a lot of management things that you needed to have as well. And I think getting through that really helped like the second year.
Because you two were full time as well, weren't you?
Yeah.
They didn't actually realise that I had a set amount of
Things,
jobs. I did
yeah.
about 13 hours.
So we'd be like, hey, can you?
Yeah, and I'm like, listen. Well, I came out in
Because when they're finishing their day, we're
she
starting
probably just
like,
started it.
not
Yeah.
on shift.
and I'm did he?
And the way that the thing was written out, it was like it was like so specific. It was like 4
Yeah.
cases, several like
And that was for
decision making.
that was for reporting though,
No, no, no.
right?
But
That's
you
all I
took it
had.
as
Yeah. No,
And
but
this-
that's why it had been written. That document had been written based off the application for the.
I know,
Right.
but that's
That
what we
was-
had to go.
that's
so we
all
took
I
it
had
as
to go
Bible.
off. So when I'm
It
it just felt like there was a lot of expectation and we were already behind, and I'm just like,
I know.
you don't want to fail.
No.
You don't want to feel like you let people
But-
down, but at the same time you're like, actually I'm just swimming anyway.
One of the massive things is, that we realised, because our team, I would say, are really skilled facilitators, skilled artists, can make amazing creative projects, can listen to people, but they like a formality.
Yeah.
Like a number of sessions, they're like this.
Yeah.
And what this did is throw that out the window, and they're like,
Yeah.
and now one of the kind of rules is get to know people first.
Yeah.
Just be around the
Yeah.
space. Just be, and that's how the project's run now.
What we named in that
For me,
space is
I
that
would-
youth workers, they wouldn't have considered themselves as artists, and all of a sudden they were being put on this creative arts project as members of staff, expected to have like coordinating delivery roles, and it's like, well, that's on us.
And get
What
people
we do is work
together.
with people.
Yeah.
And then there was all of a sudden this education cycle that happened between the team, where through these conversations you're like, actually, creativity can be this, creativity can be that, and the practitioners from us need to understand youth work from this. And that's when, and then we broke things down, didn't we? Like, why are you here? Why do you work with young people?
Yeah.
What do you want to get out of the projects? And that's when you started, and it was away from the managers and the directors, and it was, how are we going to go from 3 different partner organisations to one in our words team? What's going to make it
And I think
successful?
for me it was cutting out the top of the food
And
chain.
you then led on that.
Yeah.
What I think's funny though is that everybody said it properly started working year
Year
2.
two,
You still
absolutely.
delivered year 1, so you could tick the boxes
Yeah.
for the delivery, the
But it wasn't
project.
great.
You could tick the boxes and do what needed to be done, but the the value, the purpose, the enjoyment, the impact,
The fun. Didn't start till year two,
started
so
year
I
two.
didn't enjoy year
So
one.
actually, for the purpose of this evaluation, it's worth naming that while you can deliver on contract funding aims and tick the boxes and report on that, it wasn't as valuable and as powerful as what it
And
was
I
for
don't
years
think it
ago.
had that much of an impact with young people either.
Oh
I think
my God,
year
no.
two, we just,
Yeah, we
year
flew.
two was great.
Really.
Have you noticed any of your team develop through the project? Because Pay and Liv in this project have massively
Absolutely.
developed, and they've worked with your teams really different and learned so much about them and grown in confidence and found their own way of facilitating. And
For me, our art staff have grown more than I think
Yeah,
our staff are adaptable anyway, because
Yeah.
youth workers
Are adaptable.
have to be, especially in a community like that. But I think we've witnessed Pay and Live, both
Yeah.
of them, and probably now Zainab, just develop madly and gain so much confidence that's been fun. That has been fun watching that. And I think, yeah, in a sense, Kyra's really organised anyway. So I just feel like she's really adaptable. I think it's more noticeable with the ad staff.
Yeah, I think it's more noticeable with the odd staff but I think maybe thinking about it is that because we've all taken the youth work working ethos. Thank you for that
do you
word.
know what? That's what I
That's
think it is.
true,
You know,
yeah,
I
it is.
think what we've done with the odd art staff, I think we've probably broken down and made them a lot less formal than
That's
they
right.
wanted to be initially.
We talked about some of the difficulties, and we talked about the evaluation and coming together and having that hashing out, thinking about how we were going to work together, how we were going to be a team rather than 3 individual partner organisations, how we were going to play to strengths, how we were going to communicate, how we were going to hold each other to account, how we were going to sign off on things collectively, whether everyone was involved or not. We did that, and then yous went into like this period of socials, team building, training, that kind of stuff like that. And then you started planning for the next leg of the project work in year 2, right?
Colorism was first, right? And
No. Street art.
Yeah.
Street
Well,
art.
I don't know.
I feel like there were ones we learned from, like street art, which didn't work because stuff was going on locally, as well as some timings. But there was the foundations of the good working happening in the street art. That was the first project where, from my perspective, I realised, this isn't a campaigning project. This isn't.
That's
This is
it.
a project about
Accepted it.
dealing with social issues in a more ambient way through different creative methods. And it's also not about getting like one piece of like what Oddarts often does with community groups, which is get one piece of creative output, like a show, a load of pieces of art, a film. Instead, it's about giving young people opportunities to engage with different types of creativity and get what they can from it, and then sort of bringing in those classic youth work conversations about issues through that, rather than what I'd been trying earlier, which is like big theme, discuss, learn, make something, which like the young people are not going to do.
Well, why colorism meant so much to me, one is it came from discussions that I went to have with the lovely girls in Big Sister, and the passion. I mean, you can remember how much.
Because it came from during COVID.
Yes.
3 hours in the week with my girls group, and they were spending a lot of time on social media, and it came up like, and I remember who it was because I wrote it verbatim, and I even took a picture and said, I remember what you said because I wrote it down word for word, and I took a picture and she went, oh my God, I've still got that word because these things are important. She said, I know that I'm a beautiful black girl, but it's really getting to me now.
Yeah.
This
And
whole persona.
I was trying to
effect.
push that topic in odd in general, anyway, because I feel like we were heavily focused on racism, but in that point of time on social media, you couldn't like throw a stone without seeing people talking about stereotypical harmful things about dark-skinned women, or even about dark-skinned men, or just the constant bashing of like dark-skinned women and light-skinned women. And so I'm like, if I'm seeing this and feeling drained by it, then I know young people are as well. It meant a lot to me, but like that was like the first one that I completely like led it by myself, and so like it just felt like that cemented like my confidence in that, and like I really appreciate like Liv like truly did just like gave me that rein, because then I felt like I'm like, okay, now I feel like a lead, like in a practitioner, able to do this. Do you know what I mean? I think that's when things really started to like work for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing, which I think is massive, and again also a really good learning for Oddarts, was there was a real emphasis in Oddarts on like bringing young people and community members we were working with into traditional art spaces, and we gave those opportunities, and that's part of our mission. And it should be, because the arts world is deeply exclusionary, racist, classist, etc. And obviously we want that to change. But the Colorism project, and to be fair, the street art project before it, some after, but particularly the Colorism project, the showcase was really relaxed.
Yes.
And that made it so delightful. Like we had a crash that I was working on. You did like the potluck with everyone. The participants ran loads of activities, and that felt so different from the gentrification Whose Ends project at the Whitworth, which felt, for all my like grand vision of like this political project, it felt like a really formal space and not a young people's space. And I think being like, oh right, we don't actually have to do this thing of like having all of the events in these really plush buildings that are actually quite hostile. We can sometimes do it in the space the young people have already been at, and that could also work really well.
Now as we're in year 3,
The dream team is working.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Happy hands up.
Happy hands, and then Liv left.
I'm sorry.
And then we got lovely Zainab, who's now joined the team media.
I think joining a partnership which is nearing completion is difficult. Not only was the project nearing completion, but also it had loss preventive. I'm sure you can all agree with that. And so picking that back up when there's already established relationships between yourselves, not only am I coming to grips with the organisation, the projects, the aims, but also then having to navigate the personal relationships, it felt like it was a lot. And I suppose I still feel like that a little bit now. However, because I've met with most of you, it feels like coming into an established partnership doesn't have to be a disadvantage. In fact, if anything, it makes my job so much easier because I don't have to work towards building the relationships, working out the boundaries, the expectations, and navigating that. And I think coming in, and whilst we're moving towards the final project, I've got all the knowledge of what worked, what didn't work, so we can really end this partnership on a really, really positive note.
And
well,
this is the start of a whole new journey.
Temporary end, and then we will move on to new ventures whilst building on the relationships that we've created. Yeah,
There's the plans for that.
hopefully.
Yes.
She's media trained.
Yeah.
Right, this is year 3. We're in year 3. If you heard that 3 other organisations were entering into a similar partnership setup like this, as you've learned the lessons that you've learned, what advice would you give to those 3 organisations for them to avoid your year 1?
Team building sessions to start off with, where everybody
Before
agrees
the
that
project starts.
to meet
Before the
each
project
other.
starts, let everyone get to know each other. Then you get to learn each other.
Did you say before the magic starts? I love that.
I didn't, but we can run with that.
Yeah,
Just said before the project.
before the magic starts.
Before
we
the
need to
magic
bring all
starts,
the,
everyone together. That's when you can tease out everyone's expertise, everyone's strengths, everyone's weakness, like what everyone's good at, and then moving forward, then you'd be like, oh, you're good at that because I know you're good at this, so you can.
I would go
take
even
a lead.
deeper than that. Like, forget about what we're good at. Hi, I'm Lynn.
Yeah, just that. It's been good learning for all of us, I think anyway, just because everyone's style is different and every young person's different, every family that you're going to meet is different, so being able to tap in with other people on how their approach and their thoughts and opinions and how they engage with people and the support services, it's been beneficial. I've enjoyed it.
I've got a couple of things. I think one of them was learning, and I think this was like a learning for several of us, to like the most important part of the project was the relationships between us as delivery partners and within our teams, and then between the different organisations' teams, and then with the young people we worked with, and those actually mattered much more than like box ticking and like meeting sort of certain kind of funding objectives, and that felt really important. And then the other thing that felt really valuable was two things. One of them was like a delivery style thing, which is like coming at social issues in a more broad and loose way. So taking a big theme like hair, and then like doing everything from like having a barber in to like getting them to like identify the celebrity's haircut, like more playful ways of engaging young people into like the social issue discussion. So there was like the social issues side of the project that we developed in that way, and then the other was around creative practice and like broadening out what we saw as and encouraged young people to see creativity as, so that we weren't saying if it's not like traditional theatre, if it's not film, it's not worthwhile. We were saying, you know, learning to cut hair and like do makeup, learning to do good social media stuff, that's also creative, and that's also using the skills that we're trying to nurture in you and share with you, and you can also share with us. And yeah, had I been there longer, that would have been something I'd want to have seen more as well of.
Cool. What this project did was it brought together a grassroots with
lived experience plus academia, whereas
framework. It brought together grassroots community experiences within a creative framework.
Yes. If we push for it to go into like home cinema or Whitworth Art, like that's good for young people to have their work in mainstream art.
Of course,
and I think but that's what I think as well. We might be focused on that, but we've had to let go of that a bit, keep that, but no, we're not going to get there unless we do
to be dead honest, Becky, sometimes this is giving young people, when I say you're a finisher, it gives them they
can look back at it, they might have achieved something, whereas
achievement,
if it wasn't for you within a project like this, we'd get halfway through everything and then we'd move on to something else, and they wouldn't have that joy of seeing it presented in a creative space with.
And that's exactly what I meant by a finisher.
In a space that they wouldn't generally put themselves in.
Yeah.
I'd want to say the Heritage Project was the highlight for me. For me personally, I got to work and photograph the young people, and just seeing like the confidence and like them like showing off and kind of popping style. That was really nice to see behind the camera, and just I think for me developing that photography kind of skill as well was good. But yeah, definitely just watching the young girls like just show off was really nice to see.
For me, looking back over everything, I think something that's been really lovely to see is the confidence of the young people increasing, and seeing the ways in which they're so opinionated and they do really care and are very passionate about a lot of the things that we're talking about, but understanding how to push themselves in creative ways, maybe some things like whether it's poetry, drama, and knowing that it's not as complex as they might have once seemed, as it once may have seemed, and also knowing that there is spaces for them in those different types of art forms, and knowing that it's okay for them to push themselves and look a bit, and try different things that might seem out of their wheelhouse, and also just seeing the way in which our relationships with staff and everything has grown, and becoming understanding of different ways of work styles and whatnot has been really good. And my confidence from when this started, I just gotten out of uni to now is completely different, and that's just been down to the support and the growth with the team. So yeah, it's been really good.
It laid a template for each of our organisations to work differently, and for Oddarts, one of the big learnings was a reorientation around youth and community as a core component of our work, and to treat those as a whole set of things that we do with a set of skills and partnerships that aren't in-house entirely, because I think there was a real assumption at the start of this from senior staff through to junior delivery staff that we could do it if you just brought us the young people, and we learned from you that wasn't the case, but we learned in a really good way, and hopefully that's then what's shaped your new role is that learning.
Yeah. And I personally learned a lot from you guys as well. I think it has been a whole learning.
The context for this project was it was today, about today and what happened to young people today and what's happening to them today. It's not about what's gone on in the past.
I do think, and I think it's important as well that I think some people that are brought up around such levels of injustice think it's normal. And I think part of these projects are not normalising such levels of discrimination, not just to make people angry, not to make people feel like, oh, my life's bad, but actually to like empower people to know, right, not everyone's getting this treatment, and actually this isn't fair, and there are other ways around that. So
No,
to
I
shine a
fully
light
hear
on
that.
And I think how far we've come from the start, which was, you know, it wasn't great at the start.
Rocky.
It was. But I think that was because we didn't have, like you say, that time to kind of get to know each other, set those expectations. I think that it's fabulous. Is it?
It's
I
funny.
thought it was quite a burden actually.
We're always good once we get to the end.
Yeah.
Just got to
I think that's what was kind of ran through everything. We'll get there, we'll find a way to make it work. And I think that was my mantra at the start. We will make it work, I will find a way to make it work. We're going to do this. And I think the thought of it coming to an end's a bit...
I know, I feel a bit.
Yeah. It's not going to come to an end. I think you should set up a whole campaign. Keep in our words. Could that be your final?
Yeah.
Yeah.